what does that transition look like from middle school or even just younger novice rowers who maybe start in high school to getting their mind wrapped around, okay, like the next phase of this evolution is being competitive and maybe winning some races and all the things that come with that. But then all of a sudden that transition, you start to get the noise of performance and, 2K score and what are you doing? Like, how does that bridge? And again, very broad question. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that. But like, you're going from an environment of just getting them to kind of latch on to what this sport is all about in ways that are fun and exciting and, more kind of play than competitiveness. And then how do they flip the script and attach themselves to, okay, like now, you know, varsity programs and winning races and the prospect of maybe doing it at the college level? How does that transition navigate itself?
Yeah. The coaches, again, need another skill set, right? So you got your middle school coaches, they need a skill set. That freshman rowing, U17 rowing, they need a skill set. And the biggest skill I think a U17 coach can have is patience. Because if you're trying to instill internal motivation, they got to find their path themselves. You can do it with external motivation, but now they're just doing it to be compliant. And you can run that program and it can work. You run the risk of burnout and you run the risk of athletes just doing it to get coach off their back, which is fine, right? There's not a judgment on that. It's just every training program has pros and cons, right? And if your goal is on the water performance in a short amount of time, a more direct leadership style is more effective, and research backs that up, right? But if you can afford to be patient and you can afford for athletes to find their own journey, right? Where they come up to you, hey, coach, I think I want to be good at this sport. Oh, let's talk about that. But again, going back to birthdays and grades and growth spurts and the boys versus the girls, right? The guys are going to be later, right? If you can be patient and let them figure it out, right? And then them develop an internal motivation where they set their own goals, they set their own objectives. They want to figure out how to be good at this. Then they'll do all the work on their own. And an internally motivated athlete is one that's really hard to beat, right? Not saying an externally motivated athlete is not hard to beat, right? But long-term athlete development, when an athlete owns the process, they're more likely to stick with it. If they got some ownership of it, they're more likely to increase your retention. I've said this from the start of Skidmore. I've said this forever. How you win is with seniors, right? You look at the NCAA tournament; you can see those upsets a mile away. There are a group of seniors that have been together for 4 years, versus the one and dones that don't have that cohesion, right? Younger Manny actually broke down an NCAA tournament once and looked at the percentage of seniors versus how far they made it. And I didn't get far enough to have solid data, but I got far enough to see a trend. There's always a team that makes the Final Four during March Madness, and they got 8 seniors. Or they have a group of seniors supporting the freshman who's having the All-American freshman. They have seniors on the bench, but having seniors is so critical, right? So if you want to have seniors, you have to increase your retention. If you want to increase your retention, they got to find their own journey. If they're compliant, they'll check the checkbox and be like, oh, I'm out, right? But if you can be patient enough for them to find their own journey, and nothing's more frustrating than a kid that can be fast but hasn't decided to do it on their own. That's so frustrating. Like, you're 6'4" in ninth grade, like, just do a little bit of extra work. But if you don't take the deep breath and let them figure out themselves, they're a 6'4" athlete who used to row. And not everyone's going to find it. Rowing's not for everyone. They can be intrinsically motivated. You can do all the right things and they still might quit. But generally speaking, retention rates are higher with athletes who are intrinsically motivated. And if you want to win, you got to have seniors. They've just seen they've been through the ringer. They've seen enough stuff that when the moment gets tense, when they're down a seat, they can keep their cool because they've been in it enough. When you constantly are pulling up a ninth grader to varsity, right? Because they're 6'4" and they could be good. They haven't seen enough. They haven't been in enough battles. And not that they can't perform, but it just makes it harder for them. And our job as coaches to make their life easier, not harder. And that's my opinion, right? Doesn't make it fact. I acknowledge that, but I've had pretty good success growing teams, so I like to think it's good for something.
No, and I really love that, and I want to, again, like, that's the fun thing about these conversations, like it can go any direction. And one of the things that because just managing that, right, growing, kind of keeping athletes around, like I had a conversation with an athlete a couple of days ago, and I asked, like, how's the team doing, right? Like, and they said, oh, we're having trouble, putting out a freshman 8 or a freshman 4 this year. And that's always like the biggest thing that's like alarming to me, right? Because, like, this as a college coach and with the high school coaches, like, for high school programs, like, if you don't have that big, like, rowing is 100% retention is not a thing, and like someone's gonna leave, and if you don't have that kind of big bottom of the funnel, right, or top of the funnel, meaning freshmen, then it's going to be very hard to have that senior culture that truly latches on to what this team and program and sport is all about. And it's always a red flag to me when I hear an athlete say, oh, we're having trouble getting a freshman 8 out, right? Like, that should always be your biggest pool of athletes, and then working that funnel down over time, because some people are going to figure out different interests. What would be your advice to coaches on that front, or people who run programs and all these different things? Like, again, purely your opinion, your experience, but keeping athletes around, or even getting more athletes to be attracted to the sport, or building that freshman funnel so that you can have that senior culture established, right, through the course of having people who, like you said, I think maybe it was before we started recording, or during, but, like, you have seniors at Skidmore who you've now seen, develop all 4 years there. Like, what would be your advice on that front, both from the college and from the high school standpoint, and just focusing on building that pipeline of really good, excited athletes?
Yeah. I would say the relationship you develop with the athletes, and that they know that you are more than a coach, that you're a person that has interests and hobbies and likes and challenges. I think having a relationship, and when it comes, what I do is I try and set the 15 minutes before practice to just sit on the bench. We got like a picnic bench outside, and we just shoot the breeze, right? I try to have an open door policy. When I was coaching freshman guys at Saratoga, right, there was the picnic bench, and we always met at the picnic bench at 3:30, and the bus dropped them off at 3:15, and for those 15 minutes we were just out there shooting the breeze. And it was like 2014, so like Fortnite was big. Tell me about Fortnite, and they would explain to me, and they would just love sharing their interests. Oh, cool, right? Doing things like that, like just being available to the athletes. I would say the 15 minutes before practice when I was in Sagamore, I would just stand in the parking lot, right, and greet people and just shoot the breeze with them, right? All my teams have always seen my kids. My kids are at everything. They know I've got kids. They know I've got stuff. I left practice the other day early to go to my 7-year-old's basketball game, and I showed up on Wednesday, and a bunch of guys were like, "How'd the game go? Did Remy win?" Right? Like, they know I'm a person. They know I've got challenges. They know I've got a life, and they know that I pour my heart and soul into the team, but that it's a balance, and being a real person, I think, makes a huge difference in retention, right? I think having a relationship with athletes makes a huge difference in retention, especially coming out of COVID, right? Where we were digital for so long and people didn't get connection. right? I think connection is huge. And if you're in high school and you're the one place that you're the one adult that they can be themselves around and be safe, that is a huge attraction point for why they should continue rowing. Oh, I can just go there and be myself. That is huge because there's so many different other aspects of their life they can't do that, right? So if rowing is a place they could do that, the numbers will come. And it's so much fun. Well, it's fun because you get to be yourself, right? That's why it's fun. And I would say that how you develop relationship with your athletes, the kind of questions you ask. I always try in the fall, have everyone ride a launch with me at least once, right? We sub people through. You just get a chance to ride the launch and ask questions and shoot the breeze. And we talk about rowing. And then when the boat's turning, hey, how's school today? How's your classes today? Stuff like that makes a big difference.